All right, it's me again. It's time for new school industry, right? Remember that old outdated factory, Henry Ford? You remember when we talked about him the other day? It's time to learn how do we do things today. All right, we're going into, as you can tell from the logo, Post-Fordist. So these factories hate Henry Ford, and we'll see what that means. So we see this graphic on the right. We see there's three central parts: raw materials, the primary goods; manufacturing, which would be the secondary goods; sales and distribution will be the tertiary services. So in a post-Fordist world, you should know this is the current way things are made in the world today. Post-Fordist. And a post-Fordist is highly flexible. And the flexibility comes from the raw materials. Instead of shipping all the raw materials to one location, in Henry Ford's example, it was Detroit, they now have what's called just-in-time delivery, where, let's say right here, this is the rubber, right? This is the metal. This would be the glass. This would be the electronics. They bring in what they need to where they need it. They also send it away to places which will either have lower paid, cheaper labor doing low skilled work, or highly skilled, higher paid labor doing, right, really precision fine work. So we can see here, manufacturing is spread out all throughout the world, according to this, in a post-Fordist world. So post-Fordist, everything's done in one location. And in a post-Fordist, it's done all over the world. All right, Fordist one, post-Fordist multiple. So that's the difference. And yesterday, in the other video, we looked at how is this change occurring. We see it a lot with televisions and cars. All right, now television is different today, but the idea of a TV. So television used to be done right after World War II in the 50s. Most people started getting television, and it was all made in Europe and America. But in the 80s, a few Asian firms began to break into the market because they were beginning to industrialize. They wanted to take a part of the sector and some of the money, right? TVs are a hot commodity. The average family has 3 TVs. And firms, instead of making manufacturing only occur in Europe or America, they began to move certain aspects to different countries. So for instance, maybe Japan and Europe and the US would do some of the research. So some of the higher end tertiary services, some of the R&D, research and development. Assembly would be done in a place with lower skilled labor or cheaper labor, like China or South Korea. And I know today that wherever the screen's from, all the TVs, most of the screens are all made in the same factory in South Korea, no matter the brand. So if it's a Vizio, Panasonic, Sony, LG, oh, look at you, Samsung. All of the screens are made in the same factory. And so that South Korean glass factory is really specialized. And that's part of that global division of labor. So global division of labor is just another word for post-Fordist. We can see it up here with this car. Cars used to all be made in Detroit, right? American muscle. But now we see this is a cart that's been ripped apart. Please don't try this at home. It looks expensive and dangerous. And they're pointing to where all these components were made. We can see literally made all over, right? We see some in North America, some in Northern Europe. We see some in, looks like China, Japan, Southeast Asia, parts of Mexico. But we can see cars are now assembled in a multinational way and shipped to America. Speaking of that, how do they move stuff? So you've probably seen these, right? These are called containers, and this is called like containerization. And a container is a standardized box, and it can fit on a boat, on a train, on a plane, on a truck. Can't fit on your car, but it fits on a lot of different things. And the biggest thing is this intermodal connection allows the movement of goods in a post-Fordist world, or globally a global division of labor world. And I've seen these. You'll see them on these big cargo ships. They're bringing in all kinds of goods from all over the world. But these are what allow. This is the method and the process in which global trade can occur, is through these containers. All right. Now, when you have these containers, sometimes it's expensive. Sometimes there's lots of flexibility. Sometimes there's a lot of movement. There's generally what's known as 2 types of cost. Terminal cost, and terminal means end or beginning, and that's how much it costs to moving or transferring or unloading it. So we got to think terminal cost, right? This boat probably has high terminal cost because there's looks to be about 1,200 of these containers on here, and probably going to cost a lot. But line haul costs, that's like how much does it actually cost once it's moving? This is going to be relatively cheap because there's so many, the volume is so high, the economies of scale is such that it'll be, very low. And then flexibility, right? The boat can move course, right? The truck can change, interstates. The plane can go from one airport to another. Trains, not so flexible, right? If the track don't go there, right, you got a problem. All right. So what I want you to do is you're going to hit pause. You're going to find a friend, right now, not on the internet, a real life friend that you know, and you're going to try to decide, for each one of these, is the terminal cost high, line haul cost low or high, and the route flexibility, is it high? Okay, I'm going to hit some Jeopardy music right here. All right, I'm about to reveal the answers. Right, hit pause. All right, there are the answers. So hit pause again. See how you and your friend did. Hopefully you did well. It's a little formative assessment here. All right. Now let's talk about the last topic, international manufacturing zones. This took me roughly an hour to get sorted, but I have this breakable point here. This one's in China. And there's 3 different things you need to know here, right? There's SEZs. It sounds like a lot of just alphabet soup stuff, but SEZs is an area in a country that changes trade laws to encourage business. And if we look here at China, you can see these SEZs, or special economic zones, are mostly on ports, along rivers, and on the coast. And you can see some of these vestiges of colonialism. Some of them are like in Hong Kong. It's where they have totally different trade laws than the rest of the country. So while China is communist in name, these little circles represent highly capitalistic business incentives. So a country might do this to bring in more external business, international business. Not to be confused with another one that sounds exactly the same, a free trade zone, sometimes called a foreign trade zone. And these are places that are physically separated, typically with a fence or a wall or a partition, and they can bring in goods that can be landed and stored and re-exported without paying a customs duty. Now, before you start laughing and say, Mr. White just said duty, this type of duty is the opposite of that type that's funny. This duty is a tax on something coming into or out of a country. So this is, in essence, tax-free manipulation. So you can bring things in and hold them. You can bring things in, but it has to be done within that FTZ. And the most common one is known as the export processing zone. And this is a type of free trade zone. I know, I've said zone a lot. And export processing zone, we see this one down here. These are called maquiladoras. And this is when the Ford plants deindustrialized in America. They came down, they crossed the border because the average Mexican worker will work for less than the average American worker. And so they built these export processing zones here. And that's where they started building your Ford Tauruses, your minivans, if you're a soccer mom, whatever, your trucks, if you like to haul stuff. And they would build them here mostly for tax incentives, but it stimulated the economy. So these are different types of, I would call them loopholes for countries and companies to get away with some stuff that they normally wouldn't be able to. So remember, a special economic zone is an area that has different laws, whereas a free trade zone, you can see there's a fence right here. And the Ford plant in Chihuahua here is completely separated. All right. So if you're a 5, you're going to hit this quiz lit, and you're going to study these, see what you can do. If you're not a 5, you're probably just going to click through this, or actually you probably stopped watching about 4 or 5 minutes ago because you're not a 5. All right. I just want to say thanks for watching. This was New School Industry, aka Post-Fordist, aka Global Division of Labor, aka that new industry. Now go out there, get a 3, 4, or 5. All right, I'm out.